as soon as the Halloween costumes are gone,
that's right.
Bang, they go into Christmas as well. But enough about that. Let's get into it. I got to let you know here, if you like what you hear and see on Daily Bets, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to smash the like button there. And also, you can get a free trial with us at FTN Bets. Check it out. Go to ftnbets.com/free. And by the way, if you use the promo code SPEED, you'll even get 20% off on your subscription. You got to like that. But let's get into it. You mentioned, Chris, that we got a full slate in the NHL, right? 15 games on the docket. I want to get your props, but before we do so, I am a novice to some hockey prop betting. What I have heard is if you're going to take a guy's shot on goal, if you're going to take a goal or an assist prop, you want to try to find the guys that are also on the power play line for that team, right? Because then they get extra at-bats, as it were, when even the kind of deck is stacked in their favor. Is that crazy, or is that something you tend to agree with as well?
No, I definitely agree with it. Yeah, I think you can take that strategy into DFS as well. You just want to maximize your upside. You want to look at some players that have played together at 5 and 5 and also on the power play. And we will have an assist prop here for you in just a little bit. But yeah, I think, for shot props, it's different this year, but it took 2 years for books to catch on. The last 2 years has been amazing over at FTN, over 100 units in each of the two seasons in the NHL, and just really hammering shot props. And for example, like you get Nathan McKinnon now at 4.5 all the time and juiced. But last year, more so 2 years ago, he was 2.5. I mean, at minus 110, almost even money. So it took books a long time to kind of figure it out. Shot props over the past week or so, I've noticed have been really, really juiced. It's hard to find one with good value. So I have been kind of like altering my strategy just a little bit to take guys, as you mentioned, playing on a top line, playing on a top power play in a really good situation, playing with shooters that may fall into assists and plus money most of the time for anybody to get an apple. So that's the way I've been looking at it. But for shots, you want to look at players that are going to get that power play time, as you mentioned, a little bit more ice time, and just shot attempts are really key as well. It's easy to look at a box score and say, oh, he only had 2 shots. But how many shot attempts did they have? Did they have like 6 or 7 shot attempts? Because that's the case for a lot of these volume shooters that they continue to go to. Maybe they don't hit on a random Tuesday or Thursday, but the consistency is there. They're putting pucks towards the net. And those are a lot of things that we talk about at ftnbets.com. A shout out to Natural Stat Trick is a great website to take a look at which players are getting shot attempts. Power play is key, but also taking a look at the 5 and 5 numbers. Anybody can get a shot attempt on a power play as long as they're getting ice time. But if they can generate shot attempts and scoring chances at 5 and 5, that says a lot about that player.
All right, fair enough. And even sometimes, even in other sports, I look at bad defenses instead of just great lines as well. So there's some teams out there that are giving up a ton of shots. And like you said, you'll get guys on the top line that are at still 3.5. And those are sometimes places to go. So let's get into it. I know you have a shot on goal prop, speaking of which, tonight for the game that's going on in St. Louis, right? Who do we got?
One of the hottest players going in the NHL is Tage Thompson. Yesterday in the Discord, and I think I tweeted it out as well, 40-1 to win the Rocket Richard. That's to have the most goals in the NHL. And he had a breakout season last year. I don't think really a lot of people bought into it. He had 38 goals, 68 points in 78 games. The Sabres certainly bought into it because they gave him a pretty good contract. And a lot of people were like, wow, you're really paying this guy just on 1 year. Can he back it up? But all he's done is shown us that maybe he's just scratching the surface of his prime. Listen, Dave, this guy is 6'8". Well, 6'7". He's 6'7", 280.
Oh, with the ice skates on, it gives him an extra inch, though, Chris. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, let's call him 6'9".
You're fine.
9. You get at least another inch there. I mean, when you're that big, you shouldn't be able to skate as well as he does, and his hands are tremendous. And again, another guy that's shooting the puck. We have been hammering this since day one, over 3.5 shots. Today is the first time I have ever seen him at 4.5, and you see on the board, it is plus 125. That's at Bet Rivers. I shout out to our prop shop. I know you talk about it all the time. Get the best possible odds. Save yourself a lot of time from just jumping over from book to book. It's free. FTNBets.com. You see it in the top left corner. He is averaging over his last 6 games, 6.8 shots per game and 10.5 attempts. 10.5 attempts.
That's a ton.
Attempts towards the goal. That is tremendous. It is among the leaders. Over those 6 games, he has 41 shots on goal and 63 shots. He has at least 6 shots in 4 straight games and 8 games with at least 6 shots this season. And heck, he has at least 8 shots in 6 games this season. So he is just cruised past this number numerous times. I mentioned the breakout last year. He averaged 3.2 shots per game, 253 shots over the 78 games. So far this year, small sample, but 4.8 shots per game over 19 games. He is getting almost a minute more per game of ice time. Fun little narrative against the St. Louis Blues tonight is the team that drafted him in 26th overall. They traded him in a big deal, Ryan O'Reilly deal. It looked like he was just a throw-in in the deal, but now it's looking like an absolute game changer. So you can take the 3.5 if you want. It's juice, but I'm going to just ride this out with a guy that continues to shoot the puck, and he's really feeling it right now. So the over 4.5 at plus 125.
Yeah, absolutely. Get the plus money when you can. And I like the revenge game angle. Yesterday, right here on Daily Bets, Benny Ricciardi and I were talking a lot about Ben Simmons going back to Philadelphia, Seth Curry going back to Philadelphia. Right. So I'm all about the revenge game aspect. And give me somebody who's 6'8" and can just plug up in the middle. Because, Chris, like, if they just keep hammering it in, right, on like the scrums, are those all counted as shots on goal? So he could get multiple ones just off rebounds and scrums. Right?
Absolutely. And I mean, if you're watching this guy play, he has at least 2 rushes that are phenomenal. And he's playing in all situations, which is really nice as well. We talk about power play. He's also penalty killing, for the Sabres. So you could see him sometimes kind of tuck his head down, and he's such a big body with speed when he's coming in on you one-on-one or out wide. We've seen a numerous amount of highlight reel goals from him where he's cutting along the side. His reach is so long that he can protect the puck with his leg, bring it into the goal, whether it's a nice fancy deke in on the goalie or just a shot and a rebound. It's like, it could happen quickly. In our Discord, we were like, wow, Tage Thompson has 0 shots in the first period. I end up with like 7 or 8 for the game. It's just, it can happen very, very quickly with this guy.
All right, fair enough. That sounds like cash to me. We like that. Now, we're also going over to a game in Chicago where the Stars are there, and you've got, it's interesting, an assist prop in this one, which I find interesting. Why would you go assist, say, over like to get a point? Because I'll be so pissed off if the guy, and I won't let it out just yet who you're backing, but if he winds up scoring and not getting an assist. So tell me, how do you kind of differentiate between which of the options available are the ones you go with? Who are you going with for the Stars tonight?
It's a great question, and we've been burned a couple times by that. You take the guy for the assist, all of a sudden he finds the back of the net, and you're like, I will give a shout out to Bet365. Not everybody can play this, but we're having a lot of fun with these same game parlays where you can just take points. Now, the thing is, these guys are juiced for a point, like minus 200, minus 220, minus 220. But one thing I talked about, and you mentioned with power plays and 5-on-5, and some of these guys correlate. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Dallas Stars, but one of the hottest lines in the NHL, dating back to the start of last season, Jason Robertson, Joe Pavelski, and Roope Hintz. I'm pretty sure every time the Stars touch the ice on home ice, I put in a same game parlay with those 3 players to have a point, and it pays about plus 170, plus 190. We did last night with Alex Tuck and Tage Thompson and Jeff Skinner. They paid plus 175 for them to all have a point. I think they combined for like 10 or 11. This is one of the better lines in the NHL, as I mentioned, and the splits are for real. I'm looking at Joe Pavelski. He's a pass-first guy. Yeah, he can score 20 goals this season, but the reason I'm going with his assist prop, which I believe is plus 128 over at FanDuel. There we go, good sir.
Yep.
Joe Pavelski is playing with a guy in Jason Robertson who has just been he's been phenomenal over these last 2 seasons. For Jason Robertson, he's got 14 goals, is 3rd in the NHL. He's got 29 points, is 3rd in the NHL. And Joe Pavelski is assisting on a lot of these goals. Robertson is that trigger man. He's the guy who's going to lead the line in shot attempts and shots overall. He's finding the back of the net. And Pavelski is that pass-first guy, as I mentioned. This is his 17th year in the season, Dane. And last year, he had a career-high 54 assists. I mean, he's had great seasons where he's had a lot of assists, but he has just found a home in Dallas next to this young buck and Jason Robertson. 12 assists through 19 games so far this season. And the home and away splits are for real. And I was looking into this because I've written them up in the DFS package in the NHL article. And again, just like ftnbets.com/free, ftndaily.com/free if you want any of our DFS content over at FTN Daily. So the splits, I was just taking a look. Last year at home, that trio, Hintz, Robertson, and Pavelski, they combined for 120 points in 124 games. Pavelski had 40 and 41 home games. On the road, in a very similar amount of games, 116, a handful fewer, they only had 98 points as a trio. That's still pretty good. But at home, where they get those matchups, They can double shift, an icing. You can hop on over the boards. You get away from opposing team's top, best defensive players. We don't even have to worry about that today, because the Blackhawks, for one, they have a bottom 10 penalty kill, and Dallas has the fourth best power play. Those three are going to play on the first line and on the first power play. Chicago has allowed the third most shot attempts, the third most shots at 5-5 per 60. They're top 10 in goals allowed. They're top 10 in scoring chances allowed. So this is just a prime spot for that line to contribute tonight. Pavelski with 9 assists in his last 11 games. Sometimes you can get really good value on these shooters, like a Pasternak or a Tage Thompson for an assist, but I know that Pavelski is going to be looking for Jason Robertson. So I'm taking that one, and consider all three for a point if you can do a same game parlay at Bet365. It's a really good spot for the line.
I like that. Plus money there for the Pavelski assist. Yes, at plus 128. And I like that little cheat code. You have 2 or 3 guys on the same line just to get a point. You can get that all in one goal, right? One guy scores, the other 2 guys get an assist, and bang, you're home right away. So I like that, to be sure. We got Tage Thompson peppering the net tonight against St. Louis, and we got Pavelski maybe with a helper against the Blackhawks. And also, I mean, we got your squad, Canada, I can only assume in the World Cup right now, playing against Belgium. So all sorts of things going on for you, Chris. I would be remiss if I didn't, because we're not going to have a show tomorrow there, because, you'll be doing your own traditions, but it will be Thanksgiving here in the States. And like you said, there'll be 3 games to watch. One of them that I have my eyes on, Chris, is that Giants-Cowboys game, right as the tryptophan will be kicking in. And I think the anytime touchdown markets there are out of whack. Okay, you got Saquon Barkley at like minus 160. There is not another Giant listed in most places to score a touchdown until this guy. It's Darius Slayton at plus 280 to get into the end zone. And let me tell you why I love him. First of all, his 2 touchdowns actually lead Giant wide receivers. His 41 targets are second on the team, only behind Saquon. His 24 receptions, second on the team, only behind Saquon. And he's pretty much the last man standing, Chris. Wan'Dale Robinson out. Sterling Shepard's been gone. Kadarius Toney is over in Kansas City. So, I mean, if you believe anyone who's not named Saquon will find the end zone, I know the Dallas defense has been good, but Slayton had chemistry with Danny Dimes last year. Yeah. His 10 targets last week against the Lions led the team. And I just quite frankly think the algorithm hasn't caught up to understanding that there's no one left in the wide receiver core for the Giants. So it was at plus 320. It's down to plus 280 right now, but he's another guy. He's a guy I like to get into the end zone. You started nodding your head vigorously, though. You like the Slayton play?
No, yeah, I like it. Slayton, I know you were part of the FTN betting show a couple weeks ago, and last week I had Darius Slayton over his receiving yard prop. I think it was 43.5. I gave 47.5 and the touchdown call on Mean Streets today. I think it was 3-1 at that point. Beautiful. So it looks like people are starting to bet it. Plus 280 is a really good spot. I mean, you said it perfectly. There's not a lot of bodies there. I thought he had a breakout season with Daniel Jones in 2020, 17 yards per catch. So he is the deep threat. Not only is he's basically the only guy in the offense to catch a pass. He's also the deep threat guy inside this offense. 10 targets in his last 2 games, at least 58 receiving yards in 5 of his last 6 and 4 straight. So I mean, you got to think that the boys are going to have a lot of success against the Giants this week, right? I mean, getting after an offensive line that is completely depleted, and they're massive favorites here. It could happen late, but as long as it happens, like I know I talked to Jake about Darius Slayton. He's like, I don't like the spot for Jones, and the Cowboys are going to crush him. That's fine. They can crush him all they want.
Garbage time works.
As long as you get a touchdown, a garbage, it all counts the same. As long as it's in between the first quarter and the fourth quarter or the end of overtime, which probably we won't see. Slayton is going to get some looks and get some targets. And heck, if they're down in the game, they're going to be chucking a little bit more than they want to. Their game plan is to give it off to Saquon, but they're going to have to throw a little bit.
Oh, yeah, Saquon will touch the ball 25, 30 times. I understand that, but I'm with you. Dallas is big favorites. The game script will eventually go to the fact that it needs to be on Daniel Jones's arm. The other anytime touchdown prop I like in that game is if it happens to not be on his arm. I like Daniel Jones getting into the end zone himself potentially at around 3-1. Listen, this guy's 437 yards on the ground this year, is 5th among quarterbacks, and you don't hear him around like Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, but he is right there with them. He has 4 touchdowns on the season already, Chris, and they're offering this also around 3-1. He's got 4 touchdowns in 10 games. That's 40%. That actually assumes something more like 2-1, if you want to know the truth. They're giving it to you at around 3-1. And like you said, it can happen at any point. And I'm seeing more and more when the Giants are in the red zone, they do a little zone read. Everyone follows Saquon, and Daniel Jones can certainly run. So listen, if you think anyone not named Saquon is going to get into the end zone, I would actually recommend putting a sprinkle on both of these guys. If one of them hits, you come up with positive value, and it's possible that both of them could hit. And then you got a little bit more for that, Secret Santa that'll start happening right after Thanksgiving. I say do both of them, but if you only want to do one, I completely understand. It sounds like you do think Dallas is going to kind of run away and hide, though, tomorrow afternoon.
I do, yeah. I just, they lead the NFL in sacks, and the offensive line is not great in New York. And I credit Brian Daboll, what he's been able to do. I mean, the creativity, you kind of alluded to it inside the red zone. I've noticed the same thing. Obviously, all the defenders are going to have their eyes on Saquon. But Jones is a sneaky runner, right? He can tuck and run. He's going to be running a little bit for his life. We've seen some massive rushing performances from him and some touchdowns, which you just mentioned as well. I do believe it is going to be a bit of a blow, but these two teams know each other pretty well. A lot is on the line. They both have the same record.
Yeah.
They're fighting the Eagles to try to catch them for a division, and they're feeling Washington behind them. Fighting and winning some games, and on the bubble of making the playoffs as well. So it could be competitive, but I don't think we'll see Jones or Slayton leave the game at any point. If it is a 3-score game, we could see it come, pretty late. But again, credit to Daboll. They have guys in motion. They're setting up Jones to have a lot of success. It's not just him dropping back and chucking the ball like he did last year. It's, it's RPOs, it's quick bubbles. It's just like they're setting him up to have, like, I think a couple weeks ago, I mean, I know the past couple games haven't been great, but it was the highest completion percentage that he's ever had. And it was just because of coaching. Remember last year I don't know if you're a Giants guy, but last year when they were like, 3rd and 8 on their own 8, they had a quarterback sneak
and run a draw. Yeah, it was
horrible. Like, what the heck was that? So play calling has been phenomenal. And Daniel Jones is really sneaky on the ground. So I do like those two calls. And there's a lot of value there. Everybody's looking at Dallas, but those guys are all juiced for touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb was plus 110, I think, yesterday. Now he's minus 120 or something silly. So
Pollard and Zeke are both minus money, I believe, as well, to get on in. And by the way, just so you know, I am actually a Jets fan. Unfortunately,
Jets.
But what you're gonna do? I think you're absolutely right, and that's why I think Daboll, along with my guy Salah and some others, begin consideration for Coach of the Year. You got to have Sirianni in there. I also think what McDaniel is doing in Miami deserves to be kind of lauded as well. But we got plenty of time to talk about that as we get after Thanksgiving into the stretch run of the NFL. But thanks, Chris, for stopping by and giving 2 NHL props in the first 3 days here of Daily Bets. We've done NFL props, NBA props, and now NHL props as well. 2/3 of the earth is covered by water. The other third covered by Daily Bets on FTN. Don't forget to hit that like button to subscribe. And remember, we're doing a free trial as well. FTNbets.com/free. You can get your 3-day trial. And then when it turns time to pay, use the promo code SPEEDS. You'll get 20% off. But thanks a lot, Chris, for joining the show. This was a ton of fun. We'll have you back on next week doing some more NHL props, but everybody's just got to fade the noise and get that paper. Have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody. We'll see you next time here on Daily Bets on FTN.